Hey everyone, glad you joined us today. I'm Coty Evans. I'm a speaker and a communication coach, and we're doing an interview today. And I'm super excited. And let me tell you why. Because we have on the show today a super unique lady that I just know you're going to be fascinated by her story. It's a story pretty much like no other. And I encourage you to stay the duration of the show because she has information that you are definitely going to want to stay tuned to. So it's a friend and colleague of mine, and Dorothy is her name. And Dorothy actually owns a boutique business consultancy and serves middle market firms. And one of the things I love about Dorothy is that she is as we call it in the field, a science geek, much like myself. She actually did her undergraduate work in physics and math, and says she got her first job because she knew more quantum mechanics than anyone else. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm super impressed by that. So I'm going to listen to her for no other reason because of that. But I know that you're going to find this fascinating. Dorothy has been able to help companies from struggle to excellence, from Texas Instruments to PepsiCo. She's worked with middle market firms and stock clearing and media distribution and much, much more. And the interesting thing, here's where it gets really interesting for me, is that Dorothy has tried to live a lifelong, healthy type of life. But she still found herself struck by a condition widely considered incurable and says she's been able to overcome it. And not only that, not only has she been able to overcome it, but since then, she has been on a pursuit of excellence, and has become a published author. She is a leader in her Rotary Club. She sits on the board of directors for a Texas nonprofit called Opening Doors International Services, and she's still active in her church. Now, you may be thinking, all right, Coty, you didn't tell us what the condition was. Well, I did that on purpose because I wanted you to wait with anticipation. But that condition is a condition known as dementia. And whether it's Alzheimer's or otherwise, Dorothy is here to open our minds to how you can save yours from the devastation of dementia. So please help welcome my friend and colleague, Dorothy Kuhn. Dorothy, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Coty, and thank you for that generous introduction. It's an honor to be here with you.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait for you to share this story with our guests, because I know that this is a condition and a disease that is impacting millions and millions of people. So I, again, strongly encourage you to stay the duration, folks, because this is information that will help you in your lives and those that you care for. So Dorothy, let's get started. And I'd like to ask you, as we get started, to please tell us a little bit about how your journey for being an advocate for people with dementia began.
Well, Coty, had you been with me the Sunday after Thanksgiving in 2013, you would have witnessed the scariest moment of my life. I'd enjoyed a great weekend with my two grown kids. And on Sunday, I was having a conversation with my son as though the conversation we had had the day before at lunch had never happened. Wow. My daughter was looking at me like, oh, She didn't say a word, and her face was screaming at me. What's wrong with you, Mom? What's going on? So I found a way, that my 3-year struggle at that point, for 3 years, I'd been struggling with memory and focus issues. It was miserable. It was getting worse. And I was doing everything I could to manage it and be better. And I couldn't pretend that I was succeeding anymore. I had to face the truth that I needed help. So when I know I need help, I get it. And I am just so blessed to have been able to find a way to turn it around. And for a long time, I didn't talk about it at all. Because, when you think you're a smart person, it is hard to admit there's something not right upstairs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it took about 18 months, but that's how long it took me to come to a place where God really put it on my heart that other people deserve to know how to do this too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that so many people are struggling with this. And my wife and I, we're the primary caregivers for my 91-year-old grandmother-in-law who has stage 6 Alzheimer's. And so the fact that, you are an advocate out there for people dealing with this and trying to catch it early so that you can make a difference and make a change, a positive change, I think is just a huge, important philosophy to come from, and I'm super glad that you're doing it, and that's one of the reasons I think that people will be interested in this program today. So thank you for sharing the struggle. I know that requires a degree of vulnerability, like you said, to admit that something was wrong and that you had to do things differently to change.
I really did, and I fought it for a while, but at some point you have to really understand that a new challenge means that new strategies and approaches are needed, because if you could solve it with the ones that you already have, you would have done it already.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that true? Well, you mentioned challenges just a second ago, so let me ask you, because I'm a relationship coach and I'm always interested in things from the relational standpoint. What were some of the initial challenges that you faced, the immediate relationships that you had, the ones that were at home, and how did you overcome those?
So my kids were, my son was out of the house and my daughter was a teenager. And so at home, things were okay with us. Where I really ran into those initial challenges was professionally. I still had a full-time gig and was launching toward, or moving toward launching out on my own with my own business consultancy. And so I had, I had many excuses for why it was hard for me to remember things. I was working long hours with my full-time gig and preparing for the next phase of life. And the challenges that I had were, it was just harder and harder for me to remember the kind of detail that is important when you're managing a big team of people, which I was. And so I would take copious notes. Things that had always served me well in the past, I was doing them even more, taking more notes and trying to make sure that I could keep everything. But the problem with dementia is that you're losing brain cells. There are things that are really great in the bloodstream that when they seep out into the brain, blow up some brain cells. And when enough of that happens, then you don't have enough brain cells to put those pieces together to help you remember things. So it was just getting harder and harder. I was working late at night when nobody could interrupt me. And I could focus a little better then, but it was just wearing me out. And honestly, it wasn't serving anybody. It would have been better if I had come clean a year earlier or two.
Sure. Well, I like what you said earlier, just the fact that you have to admit that something isn't necessarily quite right. And when you are, when you understand quantum mechanics and your mind works in that way, to be able to go, oh gosh, something's not quite right, that has to be difficult to deal with. And so I congratulate you for taking the bull by the horns, if you will, and admitting that and getting the help that you needed.
Oh.
That's great. Well, let me ask you, so you talked about really the professional challenges, but if you had to pinpoint more of the things that were going on so that other people can be aware, when you talk about not being able to necessarily perform professionally, are there a couple, 3 things in there that you think that you could share with people so that they can be on the lookout for those initial challenges as well?
Oh, yes. And on my site, I let people know all the differences between aging memory, normal aging, how our memory changes, and how memory changes with dementia. So they've got a side-by-side of what those changes are. But in short, for now, I was grumpy. I was short with people. And most people stepping into dementia, and as it progresses, do tend to be grumpy, even combative, sometimes in a way that can be really quite scary. And the reason for that is if you don't have brain cells to put ideas together, you don't recognize people, you don't remember things. But here's the part that changes really slowly for us. It's our self-concept. It's deeply held who we think we are. And I still thought I was the same capable, competent, happy-go-lucky kind of gal. And when things aren't going well and we're doing absolutely everything that we can to make it go well, the very human response is to blame, to point the finger and blame. Ouch.
Ouch.
It wasn't very functional. It made me hard to get along with. And then I wasn't being myself.
Well, then how did you overcome that?
How did I overcome
those work challenges? Yeah, those work challenges and being, you know.
Well, when I called my doctor and said, you got to get me to the best in Dallas, second best will not do. What's going on, Dorothy? You know, long story short, she had had that same struggle in her own family. Her own grandmother's dead miserably of dementia. And she knew she was at risk because when we have it in our bloodline, we are at risk. So she promised she would do everything she could to make that problem go away. She saw me that week. And as I got better, because she's good at what she does, and so she's my partner in this. I do all the things that doesn't require her skill, and she does the pieces that she's well trained as a functional neurologist to take care of. But those, just getting better, getting my brain healthy again, stopping the damage, recovering the function that had been damaged. Those are the things that helps me step back into being my capable self and really turn around from dementia. That's what helped me be better.
Yeah. Well, what I really loved about what you said, there are several things, but the one thing that I love that you said, because this is something that I advocate, is that getting the help. Because even though you are smart, even though you do understand quantum mechanics, there are other people that specialize in these types of things. And so the fact that you sought out somebody who specialized in this to get the support that you needed and the continued support that you will continue to need as you go on this journey is key. And I know you talk a lot about mindset in when you're talking to businesses and the coachees that you have, as do I. And so I really think that's an important message that I hope came through to our listeners, that getting the support, whether it be a doctor or your family. So thank you for touching on that. That's
my pleasure. And you're right. I mean, no one person is enough. And anything big takes a team. And when you've got something that you've never done before, like turn around a disease nobody thinks is possible to turn around, then it really does take some good help. And the mindset pieces and the ability to establish and maintain and sustain really new habits and ways of being, it's life-giving. It's so fun and worth it, and it takes support.
Well, and that kind of leads me to my next question that I have for you, Dorothy. You obviously have a unique story, and so I think with that unique story and that unique situation comes unique transformation for the people that you talk to. And so when we talk about that, what is that unique transformation that you offer to people who are noticing signs of dementia now?
Oh, I noticed my unique transformation that I offer is to turn around from dementia. This is not a make your dementia symptoms less noticeable like the pills and drugs that are available today. You know, today our best researchers say that a cure from a conventional medical perspective is 15 to 20 years out in the future. The kinds of medicines that are available just mask the symptoms and make it so a demented person sliding into that unhappy future is more pleasant to be around. And, you know, there are some people who might be satisfied with that, but for me, I don't get the point. You know, I want to live my life fully while I'm here on this wonderful planet. So the thing that really helps people is to step away and turn around from dementia, to say no more, thank you. I'm going to step into a new way of being so that I have a healthy brain. In fact, 3 months into treatment, I asked my doctor, so how much runway does this buy me into the future? You know, 6 months, a year, 5 years? She said, Dorothy, you keep up these new habits and you will have a dementia-free brain for the rest of your life.
And that's encouraging to a lot of people. And I know there's a lot of debate still out about this topic. And so I commend you for going out and speaking to folks about this. And I'm sure that you get some pushback occasionally. But I think in everything that coaches do, it boils down to a function of hope. A hope that there is a better and different way, because otherwise we would stay stale and stagnant. And so despite any pushback that you may or may not get, and I haven't talked to you at length about that, but I really do applaud you for the courage that it takes to do this, because it is such a new venture, if you will, and all the studies that are going on with the neurology. And I'm really happy that you're partnered up with a neurologist and that y'all are going out as a team and supporting the cause. Noble, Dorothy.
Oh, thank you. And I'm not the only one. I'm just the only one bold enough to talk about it in public.
That's exactly it. Well, let me ask you, I know that in the introduction I talked about how you had lived a lifelong pursuit of trying to maintain health and be healthy. So let me ask you, did you ever think in a million years before that you would get dementia?
No. And it's so funny. My own father had dementia. He had an unusual kind of, or not unusual, an infrequent kind of dementia called Lewy body disease. It's the same process that goes on in the brain. It just happens in a different part. So the symptoms are different. And, we tend to name diseases by the person who found it, or, symptomatically or something that way. But, I'm the healthy kid in the family. I'm not overweight. I go to the gym. I walk the dog. I eat right, or so I thought. But I never thought I would.
Well, so with all the information out there, there's a lot of information out there that says that it may be not able to be overcome. And so having all that information kind of thrust at you, what was your thought? What in your mind made you think there could be a solution for it?
I just always think there's a solution. That's my science background. I always know that there's a way to press forward the frontier of knowledge and practice. I know it. So I look. And when you look and you know something's possible, guess what? You're pretty likely to see what's possible.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you mentioned earlier that you struggled at home a little bit, and that your son and that your daughter you had a conversation with them on a Sunday that led you to believe that you might have this. Were there any other indications that you might not have a memory that was serving you as well anymore, or was it the kids?
It had been building up. For 3 years. For 3 years, I had struggled. And what I found out since my turnaround, and I've really been so interested in studying how this disease starts and progresses through time, it's been interesting to find out that it's not a disease that has a pattern like bronchitis. Bronchitis 2 to 3 weeks, beginning to end. You're feeling fine. Then you're not feeling so good. Then you're feeling awful. You go to the doctor. They give you antibiotics and other things like that. In a couple of days, you're feeling better. And then, it takes a week or so. But after, 2 or 3 weeks, you're fine again.
Right.
Well, the pattern of dementia is a very different pattern. It's not measured in weeks. It's measured in decades.
Yeah.
3 decades, coming slowly. And then it starts to become noticeable to you. So catching those really early signs makes all the difference.
I would like for our listeners to really later on in the show listen for what those are. So hopefully you'll share some of those. But before we get there, you talked about working with a neurologist that's been pivotal for you. So when you started working with her, how long was it before you really started seeing the results?
So let me just mention that she is a different kind of neurologist. There are standard conventional medicine neurologists of the kind you normally think about. This is a functional medicine approach. And so she's a functional neurologist and has one diploma working on yet another one in functional neurology. So a really talented gal with that different perspective that a functional medicine approach provides, which, you know, if you don't have a solution that works from a conventional medicine perspective, and I'm a big advocate of conventional medicine, you know, it saved my bacon on more than one occasion.
Amen.
But, yeah, amen. But, you know, if it doesn't have a solution, you got to look for a different kind of strategy, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So remind me what your question was, because I didn't answer it correctly.
I'm just curious for our listeners, because you said that you've been able to overcome this. What can they look at in terms of how quick can they see the results? How quick did you see?
Yes. So within, in the first week alone, I got a compliment on my memory. And I had not had a compliment on my memory in well over a year at that point.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it really was, the beginning was soon, and it just got better and better and better. So the only thing that I'm really struggling with now on a consistent basis is names. Names are still a little bit hard, but honestly, I'm as good as I was in my 20s with names. It was just in my 40s when I figured out a structure and a kind of a thinking system to get to be good with remembering names. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, well, luckily that probably won't show itself, because so many people are bad with names that you probably fit in the rest with everybody else. So no worries on that.
I'm
when you talk, let me ask you, you obviously have a good outlook, and attitude is a lot for what goes on with our lives. But when did you think and realize that it would be okay for the long term?
So that came in a couple of pieces. The first was when I asked my doctor, and she said that I would be okay for the long term as long as I kept up these habits. And, you know, when I get a new habit that works for me, I'm keeping it. So that was the beginning, the opening. But I really, I'm an evidence-based kind of gal. I need to see that it really is going to take and stick and be better. And then I had to, in my own mind, get to a place where I was willing to be vulnerable enough to talk about it in public. And that took a lot of internal soul searching. It took a lot of my internal journey.
And so how long before you did start talking about your turnarounds? That's your key thing. That's turnaround. So how long was it before you started talking about turnaround? And then what was the motivator? What made you talk about it?
Well, from the time that she told me that I'd be good for the long term, it was about almost a year later when I started talking about it in public. And I got up in front of a group of about 80 business owners and told them, you know, Dorothy Kuhn, I beat dementia. You can too. It's a system. And they were just wowed and so receptive and hungry for how to make that happen in their own lives and the lives of their loved ones, that reception told me that this was something that people were really hungry for. And honestly, the thing that motivates me and gets me up every morning is that other people deserve it. They deserve to know they have the option, and that dementia is no longer a death sentence. You know, this isn't a mask your symptoms kind of program. This is make that monster go away.
Yeah. Well, again, I love that you're providing folks hope. And so I hope that's certainly been one of the main messages that people have gotten out of this today as they're listening. So, Dorothy, what is the number one thing that people must know about turnaround dementia?
So people must know those early warning signs and the very early warning signs, because dementia sneaks up on us over 20 to 30 years. So if you've got a family member, a blood family member with dementia, you want to be particularly attuned to this and make sure and get those early warning signs. I have them on my site. If you have any concerns about your memory, there is no need to worry, because with those early warning signs where you see normal aging memory and aging memory with dementia, and you see what those differences are, you can look at those and say to yourself, I'm okay for now, and then check in a few months again, because since it does sneak up so slowly, checking in just twice a year for 5 to 10 minutes is so worth your effort to do, because it gives you that peace of mind. You don't have to worry.
Would you mind just sharing with us one or two early warning signs? I know that you said we could go to your website, but just for a teaser, what would be one or two?
Oh, happily. So, of course, if you feel like you're not remembering things well, if normal life seems to be more difficult, if problem solving seems to be difficult, facility with numbers. If you used to be like good with adding in your head or multiplying in your head or whatever it is, and now it's a struggle, it's not easy for you, that's a sign. Number sense goes pretty quickly. And so those are kind of the first types. There's an earlier type that happens before you notice those things. And I noticed one of those, the really early signs, but I didn't recognize it for what it was at the time. And that's balance. One of the things that starts to go before it's obvious to you in your memory, and believe me, if it's obvious to you, it's way obvious to the other people in your life. Way. If they're not telling you about it, or they typically fall into one of three categories. They're not telling you about it and just being nice to you, or they're kind of telling you about it and trying to be diplomatic, or they're in your face about it, one way or another. Those are all good gifts, especially the second and the third one. Those are good gifts, because you need that feedback to get off the dime. I did. But back to those really early signs, I'm about to go back, but I used to do some social dancing, kind of ballroom related stuff of the Argentine flavor. And it's a dance, milonguero tango, a dance that requires exquisite balance. And my balance was not so good, and I couldn't explain why. So it's back. I've got pretty good balance again, and I'm going to go back to dancing later this year.
I love it. My wife loves the tango too. Well, thank you for sharing some of those little early warning signs. And guys, I encourage y'all to go to the website to find out more, because Dorothy has a lot of information there, so you're not going to want to miss that opportunity. But thank you for a couple of those things for our listeners, so they can go, oh, okay, yeah, my loved one seems to be having a little bit more struggle. So I appreciate you indulging me there. One last thing before I let you go, Dorothy, please tell us how our listeners can learn more about you, Turnaround Dementia, and your work.
Oh, this is so easy, Coty. Just go to livedementiafree.com. That's live, L-I-V-E, dementia, D-E-M-E-N-T-I-A, free, F-R-E-E.com. And just put in your first name and your best email, and bam, your copy of those early warning signs will show up in your inbox. And you'll know. You won't have to worry anymore. You'll know I'm all clear for now, or we need to talk.
Okay, well, perfect. Guys and ladies and gentlemen, I guess, let's just be grateful that Dorothy has shared this time with us, because there are just so many people, once again, struggling with this. And I think Dorothy has provided some great insight. She certainly provided hope for something that might not seem like there was hope. Dorothy, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate your candidness, and I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to spread and share the hope in a time when that is so needed. So thank you for being my guest today. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure being here with you, Coty. Thank you. You're a fantastic interviewer. I think you've got, a whole new career ahead of you, that includes all kinds of cool things. And I'm just thrilled to be with such great company and share a really great message of hope.
Thank you. And to our listeners, we will be sharing this message in different ways. So please keep a lookout for email, radio, blog, talks, all these different types of things. And I can assure you that Dorothy and I will be talking again soon to provide you some more insight. But until that next time, y'all take care and make sure that you're making all of your connections count. Thank you once again, Dorothy.
Thank you, Coty. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.